Hey, what's going on, good people? Armand Owens here once again with another episode of the Daily Unsung Leader, and we're continuing on, with the series Leading While Black. And as always, we'll start you off with a little story. So, back in 2013, I had the privilege of providing support to about 12 submarines. So periodically, I would have to fly out to go do some evaluations and make sure that submarine was performing at its best. Well, this particular time I get to the airport and I do the exact same thing that I always do, right? I go to the news shack, get me some snacks and a magazine, and then I go to Starbucks. And get me, whatever my favorite drink is at the time. Depends on what it is and what season it is. And I had been flying a lot that year, so I was able to, to get upgraded for my flight. So I'm waiting. I go and grab my drink, my Starbucks drinks, and I go in and I have a seat, near the front, because I know, once we get called, I'll be one of the first ones to get on based on my seating arrangement. And I'm sitting right next to an older Caucasian lady, but there was one seat, in between us, right? I just left that space there, really not paying attention to it. But when I looked down after I sat down, I noticed her grab her purse and move it to her other side. And regretfully, it's not something I'm new to. Just smiled it off, whatever, not a big deal, keep it moving. But what she did next really kind of shook me up. She pulled somebody that was standing up in the line, and she asked them, "Hey, could you come and sit in this seat right here between us?" She didn't know any of those people that she was asking. She didn't know those people. She just asked a random person to come and sit in between this seat because she couldn't stand to be sitting next to me. And once again, as always, I always have to make a decision at that point. Do I say something, or do I just laugh it off and keep it moving? So I laughed it off and I kept it moving. The person made this really awkward eye contact with me once they were sitting down. I just smiled and shook my head. Put my headphones on, kept it moving. I had a conversation with my team later on about it. And, this is just one of many of those type of experiences. Even here, in my current command, there's been 2 instances where I was on the elevator coming down from the 5th floor. Only person on the elevator. This is pre-COVID. Only person on the elevator. It's time for everybody to leave and go down to the 4th floor. One person waiting for the elevator. I'm in the back, and I shifted from my military attire to my civilian attire, just a t-shirt and some shorts. And the person who's not even paying attention looks up. Once they're getting on the elevator, looks up, looks directly at me, stops, says, "Never mind, I'm good." Turns around, walks down the steps. It's happened numerous occasions. What I do, I smile and keep it moving. But this is the life that I have to experience. And I'm not saying these things for sympathy or anything like that. This is just the experience. And the thing about it is I know that 99% of those people are not trying to be malicious. This is just what they believe. They're acting off their biases, and it's ignorance, a lack of understanding more so than it is a malicious, looking to do harm posture. But as a leader, leadership is difficult enough. It is difficult enough getting a team together focused on the right thing at the right time, all going the right direction. But having to deal with that as an added bonus, Yeah, makes it just a little, make that leadership journey just a little bit more difficult, right? Because even with the difficulties of leadership, we got to overcome all of these false beliefs perpetuated about us, and that makes, this thing that we call leadership a little bit more hard. So with these false beliefs that are perpetuated, about me, about us, right? What are the implications, right? What does that even look like? Oh man, wow, man, you're so articulate. Hey, between you and I, yeah, you're not like other black people. Really? This is some of the dialogue that I've had over the course of my career, and having to navigate this mentally and emotionally, and deal with this, and not respond emotionally, not to lash out and to go off, but to just eat it, keep it in. So what does that do, right? It puts an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves to succeed. It leads to an indulgence in a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? Because we can't say anything in that moment for fear of retribution, fear of being called aggressive, fear of, oh, why are you bringing that stuff up? And being labeled as a problem. Right, so we just got to eat it. And, a lot of my peers and even me early on in my career, I struggled with indulging too much in those coping mechanisms. And you can read between the lines, on what I'm talking about. What are some of the other implications? Well, the negative, projections that others place on us becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? Because people don't believe the best about us, they don't act as though we can succeed. So we never really get the full level of support from the people that are supposed to support us in an effort to succeed. It's like, oh, I told you she was. These long-held beliefs, false beliefs, lies that are perpetuated. Hey, I've attached my belief pattern onto that. Therefore, I project that onto you. So your ability to succeed is further diminished solely because of these long-held beliefs that I ain't had nothing to deal with, because you haven't dealt with me as an individual. And what are some of the other tolls? Well, I got to tell you, it's just exhausting. The toll that it takes on us, from a mental health perspective of navigating and dealing with these things, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, how is somebody going to perceive what I said? Is this going to shut down the trajectory of my career, the ascendancy of my career? Am I locking myself off from any other benefits of growing and advancing because I bring these things up? So where do these things, get perpetuated? Where, how does this idea find its way into the hearts and minds of well-meaning people? Well, we look at, something that happened in July 2016. Steve Bannon, who was Breitbart boss, would go on to be Donald Trump's chief, strategist, wrote in an article in which he suggested that some black people who had been shot by police might have deserved it. There are, after all, this is a quote, there are, after all, in this world, some people who are naturally aggressive and violent, he wrote, evoking one of the scientific racism's ugliest contentions, that black people are more genetically predisposed to violence than others, which has long since been disputed and disproven. But here in 2016, we have the reinvigoration of this racial false science that gets put into the mainstream. And this is what happens. These perspectives get shared as truth. In 2014, Nicholas Wade, a former New York Times science correspondent, wrote the book A Troublesome Inheritance. And he repeated 3 race science absolute lies that the notion of race corresponds to profound biological differences among groups of humans. That human brains evolve differently from race to race, and that is supported by different racial averages and IQ scores. And here we are again. So not only are black people more predisposed to violence, we also are less intelligent, more lies that get perpetuated as truth. These beliefs, these scientific beliefs have long since been disproven. But here we are recently with still even more reinvigoration of these lies that get perpetuated as truth. Right? Because the more you say things over and over again, the more people believe that it is truth. And finally, we have Charles Murray, who co-authored the book The Bell Curve. And his book argued that poor people, and particularly poor black people, were inherently less intelligent than white or Asian people. And when it first published in 1994, it was a New York Times bestseller. But luckily, academics who had long since disproven this stuff began to swoop in and condemn this book, condemn this practice, condemn these beliefs, but it still leaks out. It still has already made it out into the mainstream. And because these lies put forth as science, these dangerous generalizations get adapted as truth, and they manifest in what's called microaggressions or racial microaggressions. What are racial microaggressions, you may ask? Wow. You're so articulate. As if it's a surprise that I have the ability to be articulate and speak and communicate effectively. Because a microaggression is just one of the everyday insults, indignities, and demeaning messages sent to people of color by well-intentioned white people who are unaware of the hidden messages being sent to them. It's the manifestation of these long-held perspectives that have been manifested, that have been perpetuated as truth. Because you're not questioning what you believe. It's just, hey, this is what I've heard. This is what must be true. It's science, right? So, And microaggressions kind of fall into 3 different categories. You got micro assaults, right? It's the conscious and intentional actions or slurs, such as using racial epithets, displaying swastikas, or deliberately serving a white person before a person of color in a restaurant, etc., etc., etc. Right? That's when it becomes, malicious. Right? And for me personally, I don't think that it's the majority being malicious. It's just ignorance, because we got these things that continue to get put in the mainstream that are perpetuated as truth. If you're not experiencing an individual as a person and honoring them as an individual, it's very easy to fall prey to those biases and to those perspectives. The second one, you have micro insults. It's the verbal and nonverbal communication that subtly convey rudeness and insensitivity and demean a person's racial heritage or identity. Right? It's like when you see somebody that a person of color, in a place that you don't normally see people of color. I don't know, like the submarine force. I remember getting asked early on, I was like, how'd you get here, man? What happened? Remember, because I showed up to the boat and there was only 3 African Americans on my first boat, right? But it's just those little things that we pick up on, we notice, that makes that this existing a little bit, more difficult. Right. Then finally, micro invalidations. Those are the communications that subtly exclude, negate, or nullify the thoughts, the feelings, or the experiential reality of a person of color. Right, because it doesn't just it doesn't just extend to to us as African Americans, but it's the asking Asian Americans where they were born, right, conveying the message that they are perpetual foreigners in a place where they are born in their own land. Right, dude, I'm from Maryland. What are you talking about? All these things are difficulties and barriers to being able to effectively lead. And then we've overcome these things. But you ask, hey, how can I not fall into that place? How can I not fall into the realm where I'm committing these microaggressions, where I'm inadvertently saying things that are demeaning, that are insulting? Well, it's really simple. It's just honoring people for who they are, believing that people deserve honor, because honor ultimately is a celebration of our uniqueness, right? It's a celebration of our uniqueness. It's not just an acknowledgement, right? So when you say things like, hey, I don't see color, right? You're not really honoring my experience. Because I want you to go more than just, we should go more than just acknowledgement. It should be there, because there's no intentionality in acknowledgement. But with honor, there's celebration, and there is purpose in celebration. And I want you to see and understand my uniqueness, because I see and I understand and I value your uniqueness just as humans, just the human experience. Right? Because to say that you don't see color devalues what you see. It takes a part of who I am. I got to bring this person to work every single day. And I know that you don't. I know that you mean to say that you don't look negatively, at my presentation. I completely get it. That you hold no biases, to consciously concerning, my melanin. I get it, right? But I want you to see it. I want you to know the strength that lies within the crevices of my epidermis. For me to be present before you took an immeasurable level of strength from those that came before me, and I honor that. My grandfather served in World War II, and I just recently found out about that. I was able to get his DD-214, his picture in his uniform, but he was never afforded the opportunity to get to this position. He was never afforded the opportunity to be a command master chief, to lead everyone, to honor everyone. But I stand on his shoulders. A black man that, though was not let out of the galley, still chose to serve. Still, in spite of, he chose to serve. And I stand on the shoulders of that greatness. Because in spite of, regardless, for me, it's an honor to serve. It's an absolute honor to serve and to do this. So yeah, when you look at me, I want you to see the full me. I want you to see I want you to get the full experience, because that makes up who I am. And it's a privilege and an honor to be able to lead in this organization. And I believe that it is imperative that we take the time to truly see people. See them for who they are. See them for the amazingness that they have already built within them. See them for their uniqueness. See them for their diversity. See them for what they offer what value they bring to the table. Because as we come together as a team, as an organization, sharing in those different perspectives, those different areas of influence, it's only going to make us strong. It's only going to make us better. And I ask that you take the time to reject these long-held beliefs that have been perpetuated as truth. That you reject these biases, that have informed your actions. I ask you to reject those things in an effort to truly see the individual for who they are. Because only then can you truly honor them. Because only then can you truly see them for what they are. And then we can begin to create an environment where everyone is safe to play. Create an environment where everyone feels empowered to bring their full selves without shame, without guilt, without doubt to bear. Because then you're able to really draw from the collaborative brilliance of an entire team. And that team is freaking undefeated. This is just merely the tip of the iceberg in some of the experiences that I've had to navigate through. And I continue to. I do have a smile on my face. And I use these outlets like this, to bring light to it. Because I think that you deserve to hear it. It deserves to be called out. And this is ultimately, as we confront these things, going to eradicate some of these behaviors. It's going to knock down some of these barriers. And it's going to bring us together so we can truly complete our mission. So that's all I got for today. Like, share, comment, give me your feedback. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you. Honor you. Unsung Leader out.